Alright, in this video we're going to take a moment just to kind of expand on the scaling, the rotation, and the movement tools, just to be able to look and see how we can apply those into use on a simple object. We're going to do a couple of things. First one we're going to look at a soda can, something like this. Something common that you would see in a scene. So let's have a look at how we can just take a cylinder and use our moving and scale tools to get something that looks like this. Okay, so we're not going to load in a background reference image or anything like that. We're just going to create a cylinder and kind of eyeball it from there, because it's important to sometimes use our eyes instead of always measuring everything. So I'm going to just create a can size cylinder here. Let's see. That's looking relatively close, maybe a little bit short. Maybe something like that. Now, I don't know if I'm going to need this many sides. This looks like a good starting point, though. I know that I'm going to be able to remove some of these down the middle, obviously, and I might need to add a few at the top, but for now, we'll just start here. Okay, so there are a number of ways that we could get going on this. The first thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to get the general shape roughed out here. So I'm going to go to my scale tools, and I'm going to start by scaling in the top here. I can click over to my reference if I want. And it looks like probably would be having one less row here. So what I'm going to do is, if I go to my edge mode, I can double click on an edge and then delete it. And then I can double click on another one and move it, just so I get a little bit more appropriate taper for the top here. And I think something like that will work nicely. Now on the bottom, it's always a little bit smaller of a lip, but it has a little bit of a curve to it down here on the bottom side. So I'm going to again go to polygon mode and scale down the bottom. And scale it in about the same amount, so I'm looking at my top view here and kind of looking to eyeball it to be about the same. I see something's a little off on my symmetry, but that's okay for now. I can just clean that up. I think I didn't make my my can exactly in the center here, so let's do this really quickly. Let's grab it. We'll go to our basic tab, and we'll choose center selected on the ZX, and that'll kind of snap it into center. And I'm also going to scale it down just a little bit, just to kind of even it out, make it a little bit more round. You probably would want to check your cylinder to be exactly precise before you drop your tool, but for the sake of just doing this, we'll continue. Alright, now if we want to be able to create that little bit of a rounded part here, we're actually going to add a loop here. So I'm going to go Option C, which is my loop slice. I set my count to 1 and the mode to free, and then I'm just going to click out here. I kind of want it in the middle, so I'm going to leave it right there for now. And if I use the spacebar to get over to edge mode, it will by default select that edge. And we're just going to kind of taper that in a little bit. Now we're going to end up wanting to do this in sub-Ds, so I'm going to leave my details relatively blocked like that, and that will be alright. Okay, so now we have a couple of things to do here. First, whoops, I get ahead of myself. I'm going to pull this down just a little bit. So I can get a little bit more of a Coke can, or excuse me, a soda can. Don't want to be prejudiced to any single brand. A little bit more of a soda can look here. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my bevel tool, and I'm going to bevel. I'm going to pull up just a little bit to get that little lip. Remember that lip around the edge. And then I'm going to shift click off the tool, and that will reinitialize the tool, and I'm going to pull in just a little bit. Again, shift click, and I'm going to pull down. Again, just a little bit. This is a pretty subtle thing. Shift click it in a little bit, and then one more time, shift click, and I'm going to go up and in on this one. Okay. And now when we get to sub-Ds, we'll actually add another one in there, but for now we'll call that a deal. We're not going to add the tab or anything onto here, the pull tab or anything like that. We're just going to get the general shape of the can. We can look at doing something like that when we get into a little bit more complex modeling styles, but for now that will do. So now we're going to go into sub-D mode, and you can see immediately all my details get rounded out and look a little bit blobby. So we're going to start here on the top and work our way down. I'm going to grab this top poly and bevel and pull in a little bit. Let's just add a little extra weight there. We could do this with surface weights, which we'll look at a little later, but one problem with doing edge weights, excuse me, instead of surface weights, it's edge weights. One problem with doing edge weights is that those do not translate into other 3D applications. So if you want to move this into another 3D application, then you're going to be kind of hung out to dry in this instance, so we don't want to just model that way when we can do it this way. So any package we move into, if we smooth it, we're going to get this this shape again, because we're actually adding in geometry that we need. So I'm going to do the same thing here on the bottom, and just kind of click and drag in a little bit of an edge there. Now I'm going to look at this edge here. It's on that lip, and I'm going to move it up and then scale it in just a little bit more to kind of round that. Maybe move it back down a little bit. I think that's working relatively well. The problem is that we're getting a little bit too much rounding here around this edge, so we want to clean that up by adding in another loop slice. So again, I select a couple of polygons, Option C or Alt C if you're on a PC, and then I'm just going to drag that down. You can see the farther I drag this down, the tighter that edge is getting. I don't want it to be overly sharp, but I think something like that is a little bit more appropriate. I think this entire thing here is going to scale in a little bit too. So I'm going to select the bottom poly, shift in the up arrow, probably twice. Then I'm going to scale that in. Again, with the R tool is scale. And then shift in the down arrow, I'm going to shrink my selection a little bit and do that. Okay, now we actually would have a little bit of an inset here, so let's actually do that too since we're in here. I'm going to go in just a little ways, and then I'm going to go in and up. And I think that's probably fine for this. Now we notice you do get a bit of a starring effect here. Open that view up. A little bit of a starring. That's because of the way that the subdivision surfaces are pulling on this n-gon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more, and I'm just going to pull it in a little bit. You can see that that will clear that up because now this polygon and the surrounding ones are coplanar, and that means that they're all flat along the same plane. And so this n-gon, this polygon with more than 4 sides at the bottom, isn't being pulled in multiple directions. So it's going to tend to look much smoother that way. The same thing will apply to the top. You see I did that one bevel that I pulled in, and that made this look a lot better. Okay, let's look and let's try to get this little lip here as a finishing touch on this can. So we're going to do the same thing with a loop slice, and this one I'm going to pull up, and I want this to go relatively tight but not overly so. So I'm going to go maybe to 98%. Okay, I'm going to unsubdivide to see what I've got there. I think that's looking pretty good. What I'll do now is I'll select a couple of polygons, hit L to get the loop, and then I'll bevel, make sure that group polygons is on. I'll pull that out just a little bit. And now when I subdivide, you can see I've got that little bit of a rim there that I've created. So I tightened it up on the underside, and then I grabbed the ring of polygons running around, and I beveled that. So the last thing is we can see this is a little sharper than we're giving it here, so I'm going to add one more loop slice. And this one I can just kind of adjust this until I see it looking about right. I think that's pretty good there. Okay, so got the start of a can here. I'm going to scale this in just a little bit more as I'm looking at it. Got the good start of a can here, and this would be a good place where we could texture, we could start throwing on some image maps or things like that, but overall this is going to be a good start. This will make us a good place that we could start adding on details on the top, or to make a nice background object just to sit in our scene. Okay, so that's just using the simple scale tools to get that. In the next video we're going to have a look at doing a water bottle in a similar way. I'll see you in the next video.